talking about the day before, where there was some type of agreement or plan, however you want to refer to it, to rent a vehicle. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about that. Whose idea was it to rent the vehicle? You have to speak up nice and loud.
Dietrich.
Okay, so it was Dietrich's idea to rent the vehicle. Why? Rob who?
Anyone.
So when you say it was idea, what was supposed to be the plan? You rent the vehicle and what? Tell us in detail.
Ride around with people off.
And when you say we, who's the we?
Me, Michael, Trick, and Dietrich.
The four of you.
Yes.
Was there supposed to be anybody else involved that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. So who was supposed to rent the vehicle on June 17th? This is the day before the homicide.
Check's sister.
Who is that?
Tony Robinson.
Had you met her before?
Yes.
And I'm talking about before June 17th, 2018. How long did you know her before that date?
About 15 months.
How often had you seen Tony Robinson before that date?
Almost every other day.
Who introduced you to Tony Robinson?
Dietrich.
And when he introduced you, how did he introduce her? Like, as what did he say, if anything, was the relationship to her?
Objection to hearsay.
That was his sister, and she was on red car first.
I'm sorry, I can't understand what you said.
Speak nice and loud so that we can hear you all the way back here.
That was his sister, and he was on the red car. I mean, she was on the red car first.
Okay. Do you know how she was supposed to rent the car? For example, was she supposed to go to like an Alamo or one of those places like Enterprise, or do you know how?
Objection to hearsay.
You may answer.
Yeah, she goes to an alcohol tour.
Okay. Had you, or to your knowledge, any of the co-defendants ever used that app before?
No.
Okay, so this was the first time? As far as you know, using that app to rent a car, just in general?
I was using it for like 2 months.
Okay. Now, the app that she used, why was it that she was renting the car for the four of you? I'll ask you, breaking it down. Were you able to rent the car?
No.
Okay. And do you know why she was renting the car? If you don't know, it's okay.
Objection to hearsay.
Not really.
Okay. There came a point in time where the car had to be picked up, as far as you know, correct?
Yes.
Who picked up the car?
Me. Me and Michael Boatwright.
Okay. And was there anybody else besides you and Michael Boatwright that picked up the car?
Yes.
Who?
Tony Robinson.
Where did you pick the car up from?
Somewhere in Maryland.
And when did you pick up the car?
June 17th.
I still am sorry, but I can't hear you.
June 17th, 2018.
What time did you pick up the car?
I don't remember.
Was the sun still up, or did the sun already set?
I was still up.
Okay. Do you recall how long you were supposed to have the car for?
A day.
And do you know, out of the four of you, who was supposed to drive around the car during this time that you said you were supposed to be robbing people?
Dietrich.
Who, out of the four of you, decided that Dietrich was going to drive the car?
That's just when he do to drive the car.
Okay. So, in the car, besides the four of you, what else, if anything, did you have in order to be able to do this, to rob people?
We all had guns, we had masks.
Why?
To rob me.
Okay. You expected to be armed with a firearm?
Yes.
Did at any point all four of you expect to be armed with a firearm?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of having a mask or masks, plural?
So identify us.
Okay. Who was supposed to be wearing the mask?
Everyone.
So now, I'm going to ask you specifically about the firearms that each of you have. What kind of firearm do you have?
I have a Springfield 40.
What kind of firearm did Michael Boatwright have on that June 18th, June 17th timeframe?
If I'm not mistaken, it's a GSK 22 rifle.
Now, when you say 22 rifle, you know the caliber of the rifle?
22.
22 caliber. Okay? What kind of firearm did Trayvon Newsom have?
Smith and Wesson 38.
Okay?
Revolver.
Revolver. What kind of firearm did Dietrich Williams have?
Smith. A Taurus 38 revolver.
And was there anything that you recall that stood out, for example, about Dietrich Williams' 38 revolver firearm that he had?
Yes.
What?
The hammer was gold and the trigger was gold.
Okay. So it stood out for that reason because it was ornate?
Yes.
Now, let me take you to the morning of June 18th, 2018. Okay? You recall that day?
Yes.
Where did the four of you start that day?
Me, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsom started at my house.
Where was Dietrich Williams when the three of you, Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom, were at your house?
He was home.
At what point was it either discussed or did you decide to all four get together and then actually leave to go do what you said you were going to do?
At what time?
Yes.
Maybe like 2 o'clock.
Who initiated that conversation?
Dietrich Williams.
How did he initiate it?
What we doing today?
You have to speak up nice and loud so that we can hear you all the way back here.
Guys, what are we doing today and where are we going?
And what did you understand that to be in reference to what he was saying?
Or what area are we going to rob people?
What did you say in response to Dietrich Williams initiating that conversation?
It doesn't matter.
What did Michael Boatwright say in response to Dietrich Williams initiating that conversation?
Nothing.
And what did Trayvon Newsom say in response to Dietrich Williams initiating that conversation? You can answer.
Nothing.
Okay. At some point, was this in person?
Yes.
So when all four of you were together and you said doesn't matter, how did you decide where you were going to go?
We hadn't decided that.
So at what point did you actually leave the four of you in that car?
Chucky realized he didn't have any mask.
Okay, so when you're saying Chucky, you're referring to also, you refer to him as Chucky sometimes, or Dietrich?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say he didn't have any mask, what did he need the mask for?
To rob me.
What kind of car was it that was rented through the tow app by Tony Robinson?
At the Dodge Journey.
So after Dietrich Williams realizes that he doesn't have a mask to rob people, what did you guys decide to do?
To go buy one.
Where?
Freedom Motorsport.
Who drove to Reba Motorsports?
Dietrich.
Okay, so Dietrich's driving in the front driver's seat. Who's in the front passenger seat?
Michael Bowman,
Who is in the back passenger seat?
Trayvon Newsom,
And where were you seated?
behind Deacon Williams.
When you're in the car on the way to Reba Motorsports, the firearms that you just detailed that everybody was in possession of, where were those firearms?
In the car.
Okay? When you say in the car, were they in the back or did everybody have their own respective firearms?
Everybody had their own respective firearms.
What time did you get to Reba Motorsports?
I'm not sure, it's like 3 something.
Okay. When you get there, what, if anything, do you realize from the parking lot, or do any of you realize from the parking lot?
Deacon notices the victim.
How?
He sees him walking in the store.
So what does Dietrich Williams say when he notices the victim from the parking lot?
Hey, that's XXX.
Did the three, you included, look up and see who he was referring to?
Yes, he was already in the store.
Okay, so I'll ask you one by one. What did you say in response to Dietrich Williams pointing out that XXX was walking into Reba Motorsports?
Nothing.
What did Michael Boatwright say in response to Dietrich Williams pointing out that XXX was walking into Reba Motorsports?
Nothing.
And what did Trayvon Newsom say in response to Dietrich Williams pointing out that XXX was walking into Reba Motorsports?
Nothing.
So what did Dietrich Williams say next?
When we pulled up next to the car,
What car?
BMW, X car.
How do you know that it was X's car?
Deidre pulled it up on his phone.
Okay. So Dietrich Williams was driving and intentionally pulled up next to XXX's car?
Yes.
And what does he do next with whatever it is that he pulled up on his phone?
He showed that it's the same car.
Where was he looking? What images were you looking at? If you said he showed us, from what?
Instagram.
Okay, do you know whose Instagram account it was?
No.
Do you recall what the Instagram photograph or what the image looked like?
No.
Okay. And what was the purpose of Dietrich Williams pointing out the car from Instagram?
It was more than robbery.
So at some point, he confirms that that's the car, and then what's said next?
They tell me to go inside with Deidre. She said that's him.
When you say they, we're going to be very specific because there's 3 co-defendants. Who told you to go inside with Dietrich Williams to see if XXX was in there?
Michael Bowright and Trayvon Newsom.
They both did, told you to go inside.
Yes.
Okay. And do you know why, what was the purpose of them telling you to go inside versus all 4 of you going inside, or them just going inside themselves?
Is there some speculation?
No.
Okay. What, if anything, did Dietrich Williams say in response to Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom telling you and Dietrich Williams to go inside?
Objection to hearsay.
Deidre was already going in, but they just wanted to hear me say that it was actually him.
So they wanted to hear it from you as well.
Yes.
And the purpose, you're saying, for going in is to confirm that it was actually XXX?
Yes.
And if it was XXX, if there was a confirmation, then what was supposed to happen? What was the plan?
There was no plan at the time.
So when you say to confirm that it's him, was there going to be a next step as far as to target XXX?
I don't know. I had time.
Okay. So at some point after Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom tell you to go inside, you actually go inside?
Yes.
Who do you go inside with?
Deidre.
Do you recall how you were dressed?
Yes.
How were you dressed?
Black t-shirt and a black black shoes.
How was Dietrich Williams dressed?
Great undershirt on, I put sweatpants and some orange socks.
How was Michael Boatwright dressed?
He had an undershirt, and black jeans, and black shoes.
How was Trayvon Newsom dressed?
He had on gray sweatpants, black shoes, and a t-shirt.
Okay. Now, excuse me, when you go inside, before we have you get to the point of where you go inside, how tall are you?
5'8", 5'9".
How much do you weigh?
Now, or at the time?
At the time in 2018.
30,
Okay. And I'm asking you in relation to, first starting with Dietrich Williams. Were you heavier than Dietrich Williams or thinner than Dietrich Williams?
Heavy.
Trayvon Newsom, were you heavier than Trayvon Newsom or thinner than Trayvon Newsom?
Heavy.
Michael Boatwright, were you heavier than Michael Boatwright or thinner than Michael Boatwright?
Heavy.
Asking about height, okay? Who is taller, you or Michael Boatwright?
Michael Boatwright.
How tall is Michael Boatwright from what you can recall?
6'1", 6'2", 6'3".
Who is taller, you or Trayvon Newsom?
Trayvon.
How tall is Trayvon Newsom, you recall?
5'6", 5'11".
Who is taller, you or Dietrich Williams?
Probably me.
How tall is Dietrich Williams?
Probably 5'7", 5'6".
Who is the tallest out of the four of you?
Michael Boatwright.
And then who would you say is the next tallest?
Trayvon Newsom.
So you're in the store.
Yes.
Do you see the victim?
Yes.
Where?
When we first walked in, to the left.
To your left when you're walking into the store?
Yes.
What was he wearing?
I think probably jean jacket.
Okay. What else did you notice about him?
That's it at the time.
Do you remember how his hair was styled?
Only
Do you remember if his hair had any colors or anything like that to it, or what color his hair was?
blonde. Paint blonde.
Okay. Do you remember if he had on any jewelry?
Not at the time.
Not at the time. Did there come a point in time where you realized he had jewelry?
I think when we was leaving,
Okay. Tell us about it. How did you realize he had jewelry?
I think Dietrich told us he had jewelry.
Okay. At what point did Dietrich tell you that the victim had jewelry?
When we were leaving out the store.
Did you see if the victim was with anyone?
Yes.
Who? Do you know the person?
No.
Can you identify what the person looked like?
No.
Do you know if the person was male or female?
It was a male.
Do you know what race the person was?
Black.
When you were in there, had you ever seen XXX before that date and time?
No.
Do you know if Michael Boatwright was familiar with XXX?
He didn't know.
Do you know if Trayvon Newsom was familiar with XXX?
He didn't know.
Do you know if Dietrich Williams was familiar with XXX?
Yes.
What did he say, or how did he tell you he was?
Showed us his Instagram.
Do you know, was he a follower on Instagram?
No.
Okay. Besides Dietrich Williams first initiating the conversation about robbing XXX, was there anybody, and I mean anybody, whether it's somebody that, you know, we know personally or not, was there anybody else that brought up or was responsible for the four of you robbing XXX besides Dietrich Williams?
No.
Was there anybody, for example, that hired you to do this?
No.
Was there anybody that initiated it for any reason that you haven't told us today?
No.
Now, when you spotted XXX, did he actually, could you tell, could XXX see you?
I don't think it's paying attention.
Where did you go from that point? Did you stay around XXX or did you continue to walk on?
Walk on.
Where?
First to out of school.
Why?
That's what I'm asking.
So what did you do? When I say you and Dietrich Williams, what did you do next?
I'm walking, I'm trying to call Michael Boatwright.
When you say tried, what do you mean you tried?
Calling him through.
Why were you trying to call Michael Boatwright?
Tell him that was
Okay, remember, keep your voice nice and loud. Okay, so what did you do next after the call wasn't able to go through to Michael?
Nothing.
How long were you in the store?
Probably 5 to 10 minutes.
Were masks actually purchased?
Yes.
By who? Do
Egypt.
you know what kind of mask?
Black mask.
And do you know how many, if any?
One.
Were you there at the counter when he was purchasing the mask?
Not sure.
After Dietrich Williams purchased his mask to rob that day, where did you guys do next?
Started walking outside, like walking toward the car, leaving out the store.
Did you see XXX again on the way out of the store?
Actually, yes.
Where was he the second time you saw him?
I wouldn't say in the same spot.
Do you know if XXX noticed you the second time on the way out?
No.
What, if anything, did you do next?
Walked the car.
So based on what you're telling us, you exited the store first before XXX?
Yes.
Okay. Where was the car? And by the car, which car are you referring to?
Which car?
That you walked to.
The truck, like the Dodger
Where was it?
in the parking lot.
And who was it that parked it there?
Egypt.
So when you get back into the car, what position, who was the driver?
Egypt.
Who was the front passenger?
Michael Boatwright.
Who was the back passenger?
Trey Williams
And where were you seated?
behind you.
And now that you're back in the car, where are the firearms?
In the car.
Where? Are they in the lump in a trunk, or does everybody have their firearm on them?
Down there close by.
Okay. At this point, what do you discuss now that the four of you are back in the car, and do you confirm for the three co-defendants that you indeed saw XXX?
I tell him I saw XXX. And they get quiet. And Egypt asks them what are they going to do. And I tell them, no, I don't think that's a good idea because I just went in there on camera.
So you were aware that there was surveillance in Riva Motorsports.
Yes.
And when you say, that's not a good idea because I'm on camera, why did you care about that?
I knew that.
Because what? I can't hear you. Nice and loud.
I knew it was a great chance we were going to be caught.
And when,
I'm sorry, does he have a microphone in front of him? Because it's
Yes.
on? Okay.
you knew it was a great chance that you were going to be caught, and why is that significant to you? It's kind of an obvious because you didn't want to get arrested.
Right.
How did Michael Boatwright feel about that? What did he say he felt about that?
He didn't really want to do it anymore.
How about Trayvon Newsom?
He didn't want to do it.
And what did Dietrich Williams say?
He asked me to scared.
He asked the two, Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright, if they're scared.
Yes.
And what, if anything, in response to Dietrich Williams saying, "Are you scared?" did Michael Boatwright do?
So all right, we're gonna get him.
All right, we're going to get him. Who's the him?
Triple X.
What, if anything, in response to Dietrich Williams saying, "Are you scared?" did Trayvon Newsom do?
He said the same thing.
All right,
I'm
you
sorry,
talk.
Dr. I didn't hear it.
I think he said the same thing.
Thank you.
Now that the four of you are in the car, and I guess you've decided you're going to get Triple X, how then does Michael Boatwright get dressed from that point?
He puts on his black hoodie,
And what else?
his mask.
And what about Trayvon Newsom? How does he get dressed?
He puts on a black sweater, and he puts on his mask.
How was it decided between the four of you that Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom were going to wear the mask and the hoodie?
Egypt was driving, and I told him I would not get out because I didn't want the parts of it, because I knew I just was going to count.
Okay. So just from that, it was decided then that Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright were going to be the ones to actually get out with the mask.
Yes.
Okay. Where did you guys go from there? Are you still in the parking lot at this point?
No, we're parked across the street.
Why? Why did you move from the Rivas parking lot to park across the street?
Because Chucky came up with some type of theory saying that if we leave out of the parking lot and move next to the next parking lot, and across the street in that parking lot, that it'll look like we left.
So it was Chucky's idea to act like you left so that you're not on camera?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that Riva's cameras extended all the way to across the street where you parked?
No.
Now, what was the purpose of even, besides trying to evade being on camera, what was the purpose of waiting across the street? What were you waiting for?
I heard to pull out of River Motorsports.
Who's him?
Triple X.
Why were you waiting for him to pull out of the store?
So Dietrich would block him off.
Whose idea was that to block off the victim as he's leaving Riva Motorsports?
Dietrich will.
Objection, speculation, Judge.
Please answer. Whose idea was it?
Dietrich Williams.
Okay, so had you been to Riva Motorsports before that day?
No.
From what you recall from the layout, do you know how many exits there were?
Only one, I think.
And the exit that you were waiting for the victim to come out of, how was the rest of the building situated? Was it open space or was it enclosed with a gate?
With a gate.
Okay. And when you're saying that Dietrich wanted to block him off, was the purpose to track the victim as he's trying to exit? So once he's tracked, what was the plan supposed to be? Once Dietrich Williams cuts him off and tracks off his car, his being the victim in this case, what was the plan for the three of you? What was Michael Boatwright supposed to do?
Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom was supposed to get out the car and rob him.
Okay. With the firearms that you just detailed a little earlier that they had?
Yes.
How long did it take while you're sitting there waiting for the victim to come out of the store?
10 minutes.
Okay, so for 10 minutes, the four of you sat lying in wait for the victim to come out?
Yes.
What's the discussion happening as you're waiting for the victim to come out and you're about to target him between the four of you?
Objection against that.
They're gonna rob him.
Okay,
Judge, I would object and ask the witness clarify specifically what it is that's speaking.
Sustained, so if you would,
sure.
thank you.
As the four of you are waiting to target the victim, as you're lying in wait, what was Michael Boatwright saying in that 10 minutes that you are waiting to target the victim? As you're waiting, lying in wait, for 10 minutes to target the victim, what was Trayvon Newsom saying? And as you're waiting for 10 minutes, lying in wait to target the victim, what was Dietrich Williams saying? Eventually, does the victim come out?
Yes.
Who is he with?
Somebody.
Did it appear, from what you can tell in your vantage point, if the victim was armed?
No.
Did it appear, from your vantage point, that the victim even had any idea or knew, from your vantage point, based on his demeanor, of what you guys were about to do? That there was some danger that was approaching?
No.
Okay, so the victim gets in the car. What position does the victim get? What position of the car, his own car, does he get in?
He's driving.
What about the gentleman that you said, the black male that he was with?
He's on the passenger side.
And what happens next?
They drive around and come, as they're coming out of the motorsports, he's a flop some more. And I can go right and train him to drive up.
When you say get out, did the car, tell us the speed in which this happened. For example, did Michael Boatwright drive obeying the limits of the law and gingerly pull out in front of the victim? Or how fast was he going?
He's at a little speed,
Okay. How fast did Michael Boatwright get out the car?
very fast,
How fast did Trayvon Newsom get out the car?
very fast.
Was there any discussion prior to that the two of them, referring to Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom, were going to get out the car at the same time, and then what they were going to do once they got out the car?
No.
Okay. How was it decided who was going to go to what side of the victim's car? For example, who was going to go to the driver's side, or who was going to go to the passenger side of the victim's car?
Let him decide.
Okay. And where were you seated when you're watching all of this?
Behind the driver's seat.
So tell us, once Michael Boatwright gets out of the Dodge Journey and approaches the victim's vehicle, what does he, referring to Michael Boatwright, say and do? First, what does he say?
Michael Boatwright,
Yes. What is he saying as you're saying robbing him? What does he say?
pretty good.
Okay. What is he doing?
He had his rifle stuck inside the window.
I'm sorry?
He had
Nice and loud.
He had his rifle stuck inside, like inside the car,
What side of the car?
driver's side.
How is he holding the rifle? He being Michael Boatwright. Show us with your hands the best that you can. Okay, so you're showing both hands?
Yes,
Now I see your hands are, you're in custody, so your hands are handcuffed and shackled to your waist, correct?
yes.
Okay, so I'm using myself as an example, okay? How high up? Tell me when to stop when I get to the height that he was holding the rifle.
Right there.
Okay, so Michael Boatwright is holding the rifle like this with two hands,
Yes,
and he's pointing it at the victim.
yes.
Okay. How about Trayvon Newsom? What does he do once he gets out the car with his firearm?
He runs to the car, and he's putting on his necklace,
Whose necklace?
extra necklace.
At that point, where was the passenger that was with XXX?
Maybe he's going, he ran out the car.
Okay. And from which side of the car is Trayvon Newsom trying to take XXX's necklace?
Drive.
Okay, so at the point that you're describing, both Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright are on the driver's side,
Yes,
and while Michael Boatwright is holding the firearm on the victim, Trayvon Newsom is trying to take his property.
yes.
What, if anything, is XXX doing in response to any of this?
I couldn't see.
What is, could you hear what he was saying?
No,
What is Trayvon Newsom, if anything, what is he saying? Were you able to hear him?
no.
At some point, what happens next after they being Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright are on the same side of the driver's side of the victim's car? What happens next?
Michael Boatwright pushes Trey like to go on the other side of the car.
Does Trayvon Newsom go on the other side?
Yes.
And what happens next?
He reaches inside the car and grabs. Trey Newsom reaches inside the bag. I mean, inside the car and grabs the bag.
What bag?
Privilege bag.
Okay, do you remember what kind of bag it was?
Yes.
Tell us.
The Louis Vuitton bag.
What does Trayvon Newsom do after he grabs the bag?
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Judge, I'm gonna ask him to speak into the microphone.
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright,
And who does he shoot?
XXX,
Where does he shoot him from? What side of the car?
driving.
So if XXX is in the driver's seat and Michael Boatwright is in the driver's side, the shots are coming onto XXX's left side or right side? Which side?
Left side.
Okay. And what happens, how many times do you recall that Michael Boatwright shoots XXX?
Maybe like 2 or 3 times.
What does XXX do as a result of that?
Let's see.
What does Michael Boatwright do next?
Let me get back in the car.
What does Trayvon Newsom do?
He comes out, slips and falls a little bit, and then runs the car.
What does Dietrich Williams do? Now, are all four of you back in the Dodge Journey?
Yes,
What does Dietrich Williams do?
he drives off.
How long does this take from the point that Dietrich Williams cuts off the victim from leaving Reba Motorsports and Trayvon Newsom and Michael Boatwright get out and shove guns in the face of the victim? How long does all this take from start to finish?
That's the few minutes.
At some point, and I'm going to get into what happens after the shooting, at some point you realize there was surveillance of everything that we're talking about today, correct?
Yes.
Now, may I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked for identification in State B. Do you recognize States B?
Yes.
How do you recognize States B?
This phone.
And what else?
Date.
Okay. Had you had an opportunity to